Welcome to Blackhawks Insider, the official podcast of the Chicago Blackhawks, presented by ChevyDrivesChicago.com. Drive what Kane and Taves drive. We're back from a wonderful, relaxing, and in many cases, sunny All-Star break. Colby and I chat with Sam Lafferty as the Blackhawks get back to work for the second half of the season. Sam Lafferty, by the way, one of the most interesting guys on the team off ice. A two-sport athlete, Ivy League educated, from Western PA. Lots to talk about as we get to know Sam Lafferty. That's all ahead on the Blackhawks Insider Podcast. And welcome back. Want to reintroduce my co-host Colby Cohen to this week's episode. Colby, how was your All-Star break?
It was good, very relaxing, lots of sun, lots of time in the water, so I cannot complain at all. And coming back to Chicago, it was like 45, 50 degrees today, which was a nice little way to ease back in to this Chicago weather. How was your break?
It was good. I was parked on a beach in Miami, South Beach specifically. The weather was beautiful. The water temperature, on the Atlantic side versus the Gulf side, the Atlantic side tends to be a little bit cooler, but the Atlantic water was very warm and pleasant. Are you a water bug, by the way? You like getting in the water a little bit?
I mean, I will tell you this. I love the water, especially when it's clear. I am definitely somebody who is very scared of sharks. I am consciously scared of sharks. So whenever I'm in the ocean, even when I get convinced to go snorkeling or something like that, which we did this summer when we were in Hawaii, the whole time we were snorkeling, I was scanning, just looking around. So I do love the water. I love the pool the most. But I do, like I said, I spent a week just now in Florida in the water in one way or another. So I'm a water bug. I think that's fair, but clear water I could see to the bottom.
So those sharks, they're not afraid to come in shallow sometimes. So just be careful. Be careful.
It's something that's always on my mind. I promise.
Well, here we go, ready to start the second half of the season, and it's going to be a whirlwind of 2+ months for the Blackhawks. Some long road trips in there. Of course, the trade deadline is now less than a month away, but one of the many hockey-related articles that came out over the week-long All-Star break, it didn't happen to be related to the All-Star game really at all, but it had to do with NHL teams' prospect rankings, and the Blackhawks checked in at number 5 per the Athletics ranking of prospect systems. And again, if you've been following this Blackhawks rebuild led by general manager Kyle Davidson, this is priority number 1, and that is replenishing the talent and the depth in the farm system. And this certainly is a good indication that things are going in the right direction there, don't you think?
Yeah, and there's just so much to really unpack there, Chris, and it starts really with the fact that, Kyle Davidson has spent a lot of time watching prospects himself, and that's not always the case for a general manager. A lot of times GMs are on the road with the team 24/7. They might go see one or two prospects, one or two viewings on certain prospects that they're interested in, but Kyle's had, more of an opportunity to see guys play. I know he saw Kevin Korchinski personally quite a few times last year before we drafted him. And I think it really kind of speaks volumes to the plan that has been set in place because, the Hawks prospect system last year, this time was ranked number 25. And this year it's ranked 5. And so that's a huge jump. And you've got an opportunity to see some of the players, and Kevin Korchinski sits at the top of the list for us as far as prospects go, and he really impressed us in training camp. He looked like a player right away with confidence, and this is a guy who is going to be a real good player in the NHL at some point. Take a little bit longer, but it is an exciting time, Chris, and I think the plan that was set in place is you're starting to see these really early stages of it.
I'm a baseball guy, you know that. And, about 10 years ago, 2013, 2014, the Chicago Cubs had the best farm system in Major League Baseball. It was unanimous. All the major publications agreed. And then 2-3 years later, boom, there they are in the World Series, winning the World Series. So that's where this starts. And I think that's very exciting and encouraging to see the Blackhawks really turning heads from the talent that they already have in their farm system just about 1 year into this rebuild now. And looking at the current roster, Sam Lafferty, I think, was in many ways the start of the Kyle Davidson era, the first trade that Kyle Davidson made with the interim. He was still interim general manager at the time, This was January of 2022, but the kind of player that Sam Lafferty is, speed-oriented. We learned a couple of months later when Kyle Davidson was announced as the full-time general manager, this is the kind of player that he wants in the Blackhawks farm system. So we've seen Sam Lafferty have a career season this year in his first full season with the Blackhawks, and he's our featured guest today. And I think fans are really going to enjoy getting to know a little bit more about Sam off the ice as well, and the many interests that he has. So without further ado, here is Sam Lafferty on the Blackhawks Insider Podcast. Thrilled to be joined by Sam Lafferty on the Blackhawks Insider Podcast. Fresh off the All-Star break, Sam, you were just telling us that you were in Arizona for the week off, and you hiked Camelback Ranch, got some golf in, so feeling rested and refreshed for the second half of the season?
Yeah, definitely. Nice to get some sun. It's been a while, and feel good. I think all the boys are real excited to be back and had a couple good practices, and definitely excited for tomorrow night.
Are you a sunscreen guy, Sam? I mean, I know, look at you. I'm sure you're surprised to hear me ask that, given this
sounds
gorgeous
like he's taking
tan
a little shot at you. That's what it
that
sounds
I came
like.
back with. I was in Miami over the All-Star break, and as you can tell, I came back with this gorgeous tan. But no, I looked like you did a good job too, Sam. You're an SPF 30, SPF 50 guy like me.
I probably should be. Yeah, my mom probably won't be happy to hear that, but I forgot to put it on every day, but didn't get too burned. So, yeah.
I'm glad Chris started out this conversation with you, Sam, because just looking into your past a little bit, everybody knows you're a good hockey player, so we'll save the hockey part for the end. I want to ask you about golf, because I don't think a lot of people would know this necessarily about you. Two-sport Division I athlete at Brown University. I mean, it's one thing to be a Division I hockey player, but then you throw golf on top of it. I mean, I saw that you competed in the Division I Ivy League championships for golf. I mean, you got to be a pretty ridiculously good golfer to be able to play at that level. And I think I saw a quote from a player in the league about Brady Shea being the best golfer in the NHL. So now I'm like, well, has Brady Shea ever played with Sam Lafferty? Because from what I understand, you're a scratch golfer.
Yeah, I can't. I've never played with Brady Shea, but I'm sure he's a good player. I know Joe Pavelski, I think, is a good player. He did pretty well in that celebrity event in Tahoe last year, and I know there's a few others. It'd be fun if we did like a tournament in the summer and we could get everyone together and settle that, but we'll see. It just since I was a little kid, it's always been hockey and golf. Just the seasons worked really well, and played through high school, and then went to Brown and was lucky enough to just walk onto the golf team once the hockey season was over, and
no big deal.
play a few tournaments. Got me out of some 6 a.m. lifts with the boys, so I'd go to the golf course instead. So it was a fun little thing to do in the springtime there, and got to play in some tournaments. So it was a win-win for everybody.
Well, and I think that there's a lot of good athletes in the NHL. I think there's a lot of guys that at least I've seen that I think could have probably been really good at other sports, whether it be football, basketball, baseball, lacrosse, fast-moving, highly, athletic level sports. But golf is a very technical sport just because a lot of hockey players can hit the ball far. Like I can hit the ball far, but I'm not a good golfer. I haven't put the time or practice into, the short game and all that. I mean, how many rounds are you playing in the summer? Like, is it training in the morning, a little nutrition, maybe a little bit of ice, and then right to the golf course? Like, how do you stay sharp? Golf is a hard game to not, keep.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things. We obviously don't get to play a whole lot during the season. I played a fair amount in the summer, not too much, but it's almost like you said it's technical. It's like you forget a lot of those maybe bad habits you pick up over playing for a while. So I get out there fresh and kind of don't have any expectations. Sometimes you hit it a little better. So it's always fun to play. Like if we're in San Jose or somewhere nice, we get a day off. It's always fun to go out there with the boys and get around in.
What's the best part of your golf game?
Ooh, probably my 2-iron. If I just gotta get the ball and play.
Just 2-iron.
Yeah, I like to just like a driving iron. It's not as crazy as it sounds. It's actually pretty easy to hit off the tee. So it's my go-to just to get the ball in the fairway.
Any courses that you've gotten an opportunity to play that just completely like wowed you and blew you away?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to play Pebble Beach a couple summers ago with some of my high school buddies, and yeah, it was a day I'll never forget. It was everything you hear about it and then some. Just an unbelievable experience.
Who do you think's got the best drive on the Blackhawks team? You think can just smoke the ball,
like
300
distance?
Yeah, distance. Yeah.
I'd probably say Taser. He really
he's got that lower body strength.
Yeah, he really gets his lower body into it. He can really send it out there.
What's the correlation, if any, between the skill set in hockey versus the skill set in golf? I mean, and to broaden the scope a little bit, one of the hot button issues in sports right now is, well, should you specialize in one sport while you're growing up, or should you get involved in multiple sports and kind of develop a more well-rounded skill set? As someone who had a sport for each season, hockey and golf, did you think that being good in one helped you be good in the other?
Yeah, great question. I think definitely. I don't think kids should specialize too early. I think golf definitely helped the touch a little bit, and just felt like they went almost hand in hand. A good mix. They're very different, but I think you look at hockey players even around the greens, some of the touch, and it's almost like you're throwing a saucer pass sometimes around the greens. So I think definitely one helps the other.
Well, and I definitely feel like when you get on the tee, I mean, obviously there's differences, but you got to turn your hands over, you're transferring your weight from your back to your front. I mean, there's definitely a number of things that I always felt very natural, swinging a golf club, especially on the tee, feeling like there was a lot of similarities to taking a slap shot. There was a lot of similarities to swinging a baseball bat. I mean, those were, sports that I personally kind of grew up playing. And, I definitely have seen guys that are silky on the ice be able to get on the green. Like I don't know if Kaner is much of a golfer, but I know he plays, and I've actually heard he's pretty good, right? I bet you he's sick around the greens because he just has that control and command with his hands.
Yeah, definitely. He's probably the first guy that came to mind when I was thinking about the touch around the greens. But yeah, it's definitely he's probably maybe a little better on the ice. Probably maybe the best to ever do it with the saucer pass and everything like that. But definitely some translation there for him too.
So when you were at Brown, were you just taking the hockey guys golfing in the spring maybe and just hustling them, taking their money off of them left and right, or what?
Yeah, well, if there's the chance to, I definitely would try to get some money on the line. But no, I think they found out pretty quick that probably wasn't the way to do it.
Sam, I never picked up a golf club in my life until last year, outside of mini golf. And I've been to the driving range a few times now, and actually over the All-Star break I went to a Top Golf down in Miami, and it was good to just kind of brush off the rust a little bit and kind of remember some of the very limited things that I had learned last summer at the driving range. So sometime I'm going to have somebody record my swing, and maybe I'll have you take a look and give me some pointers. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, sure thing. That'd be fun.
Did you have to pick between, I mean, at some point, obviously you had to, but were you ever considering trying a career in professional golf?
Probably had to kind of narrow the focus when I think I was like 16 or 17. Like, I was in boarding school and it was the summertime, and it was kind of like, do I go to play in a golf tournament or do I go to a showcase for hockey? And my parents kind of nudged me in the right direction. I'm glad I chose hockey, and was always was definitely a little better suited for it. So, I'm happy the way it worked out.
Good life skill to have too, Colby. You know, that's why I'm picking it up now.
Yeah, well, and I think, just looking at your sort of trajectory, you went to Deerfield, which is obviously, it's a big name prep school. There's always opportunities. And if I remember correctly from personally going through that whole prep school, I didn't actually play in prep school, but we looked at some of those prep schools. Don't they make you play multiple varsity or at least play multiple sports when you're in prep school in the different seasons? I could be misremembering that, but I thought that's how it went.
Yeah, that's exactly how it goes. So I went as a 10th grade year, and in the fall, trying to figure out what sport to play. There's a lot of incoming hockey players trying to figure out the same. So we ended up playing soccer, and we weren't the prettiest out there. We didn't make the varsity, didn't make the JV. We ended up on the third soccer team. Mostly playing against like other teams, ninth graders and stuff like that, and a lot of yellow cards out there.
Just gonna ask. I was just gonna ask you the Sam Lafferty wheels on ice, where it was a transition to the soccer field, or were you just getting one card after another for being too physical?
We were all getting a lot of yellow cards out there. It was it wasn't the prettiest, but I guess got us in shape for the hockey season.
Did you have to repeat a year when you went to Brown, or did you stay true to your grade? Deerfield. I said Brown, I meant Deerfield.
Yeah, I repeated a year when I went in.
So you get the high school diploma from Deerfield, which is very prestigious. Then it's off to the Ivy Leagues. Was that part of your parents' sort of guidance that like academia was really important? I mean, you got a degree from Brown, which is as high level as it gets. You graduated high school, I believe, from Deerfield. You didn't go back to your hometown school, did you? So
no.
That's high level academics right there.
My parents, I give them all the credit. That was a huge priority. It was always school first, and the way they looked at it is if hockey could help me get into a good college, then they kind of did their job. So that was kind of their end goal at the end of the day. And for me, hockey was probably always first, but definitely prioritize school, when I needed to. Credit to them.
All right, Sam, I'm sorry to ask, but it's the Brown Bears?
That's correct.
Okay. So listen, Colby and I, smart. We're two smart guys, not quite on the Ivy League level yet. So from an outside Ivy League perspective, who's Brown's biggest arch rival? It's Harvard and Yale, and then Dartmouth and Princeton, right? How does Brown kind of factor into the Ivy League landscape?
Yeah, I guess we're kind of I don't know. We call a lot of those schools our rivals. So they, like you said, Harvard, Yale. We'd probably say those two. Probably everyone else would say someone else before us. So maybe flying under the radar a little bit. But all those Ivy League schools, those were kind of rivalry games, I guess. Playing those old rinks and a lot of history. So pretty much every time we played any of those teams, it was kind of like a rivalry game.
Do you and Colin Blackwell ever swap stories? Colin Blackwell went to and played at Harvard, obviously. Any kind of trash talk there?
Yeah, he's a Harvard guy, so obviously he's been a little more spoon-fed than more blue collar, Brown University. But yeah, it's always fun. It's yeah, a lot of those guys still playing pro hockey, so it's fun to talk about the college days sometimes.
What was the academic like at Brown? Because I was living in Providence. I think some of the years you were actually there, playing for the Providence, American League team, and used to hang with a goalie and a forward, Chris Zayers and Anthony Borelli. They were buddies of mine from kind of growing up, and they used to tell me how hard the academics were for those guys. Like, it was not, you kind of hear stories about the hockey guys at Harvard. They get a little bit of special treatment at times. I think they're a little farther down the line, but I've heard the academics are no joke at Brown. Like, your feet get held to the fire when it comes to schoolwork over athletics, where like at BU, people used to chant safety school about BU. I mean, they used to give us all the they used to give us a hard time about that. And look, I can be the first to admit, I mean, I was an athlete student, not really a student athlete, as they like to quote that term.
Yeah, honestly, it probably depends who you'd ask. The Harvard guys would probably tell you it's way harder there, and we're a safety school. But yeah, it was pretty manageable, to be honest with you. Yeah, just like I'm sure just had to get your work done. Manage your time, and it wasn't too overbearing, I would say.
What was your favorite part about just the student experience there? Is good campus eats, anything like that?
Yeah, it was a cool campus. I don't know if you've ever been to Providence, Rhode Island. Obviously, Colby has, but just a cool little city, almost like a mini Boston, I'd describe it as.
Totally agree.
Yeah, a lot of great restaurants and just
fun bars too.
Yeah, just a cool city. Yeah, I loved it there. Great campus. Yeah, just kind of a cool place.
What was that good karaoke bar in near Brown on the east side there? Was it called Spats?
Yeah, Spats.
Okay.
It was actually my freshman year. It got shut down. They turned it into a restaurant, unfortunately. But that was right across from
the hockey house,
right? Hockey house where a lot of the guys lived. Yeah.
Well, you talk about being able to manage the workload and, what is manageable and what's not. And I think that you're kind of making this easy on us because it's a good segue into, your pro career. You're a Western PA guy. You get drafted by Pittsburgh, which is kind of a dream for most hockey players. I mean, I remember just couldn't wait, thought the Flyers were going to draft me being from Philly. And just all the feelings surrounded by that. And then you do actually get drafted by your what I assume is your hometown team. I read that Mario Lemieux is kind of the inspiration, for you to really kind of get into hockey. And then you end up in Pittsburgh. Mike Sullivan, I love Sully to death, but he can be tough, especially on a young player. I mean, what do you remember most about that kind of period in your life of being a Pittsburgh Penguin and kind of getting to live out your dream right away, not only being a pro, but being a pro for your hometown team?
Definitely a dream come true. The first thing that comes to mind was the day I got drafted. I think the draft was in Philly, but wasn't sure when I would go, so I didn't actually attend the draft. I was just home on my dad's porch when I got the call and found out it was Pittsburgh. It was one of the craziest days of my life. It seemed like the whole town was really fired up. And then I remember my first game for Pittsburgh. Just it felt like my whole town was there at the game. And one of my probably I'd say my favorite player growing up was Sidney Crosby. So getting to play with him is something that not a lot of guys are lucky enough to get to do. And just honestly loved it in Pittsburgh. My whole experience there, giving me a chance to get a start in the NHL and just learning from so many of the great players that have come through there. I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was just pretty crazy how it worked out.
And now, Sam, becoming a fully fledged NHL regular with the Blackhawks. Been over a year since you were traded to the organization, January 5, 2022. Looking at this season in particular, you've already set a career high for points in a season, and then there's still some 30-odd games left. What do you think has improved about your style or level of play the most this season?
I think maybe just more experience. You get a little bit smarter with your reads and knowing where to be on the ice. I'd say that's probably the biggest thing I can point to. That everyone in the organization here in Chicago has been great. They've helped me a lot, and I've got a lot of opportunity to play in different situations. So I think just that experience goes such a long way to improving your feel for the game and your reads and knowing where to be. So obviously I like to play with a lot of energy and bring that consistently, and I think it's just helped me be a little more efficient, with where to go at the right times.
I gotta ask, what goes into getting into a fight? Because you've gotten into a couple this season, and like from our perch up high atop the United Center or wherever the Blackhawks are playing, you can still tell when guys are chirping and jawing, and we've got Colby between the benches, and he picks up on a lot of that stuff. You seem like the silent type. I mean, you don't seem to get super engaged vocally, but all of a sudden, when we play back the tape, it's like a couple of stick taps or a wax here and there, and all of a sudden the gloves are off and we're swinging. How does that style of your game play out?
It's funny you say that. I think back, we were on the Father's Trip this year, and a few of us were lucky enough to kind of get a little fighting lesson from Ty Domi, who
the best fighter ever.
Best fighter ever, of course. And I just think one thing he told us is, don't run your mouth. Like, he's trying to say, like, makes the guy guess when you're not, telling him what you're going to do, this or that. So I kind of think of that, hearing it from him, it definitely, you've got a lot of respect for a guy like that. So, yeah, I mean, there's a time and place for it. That's obviously not a huge part of my game, but, definitely there's a time and place for it, I guess.
Was there anything he gave you, like, technically that you feel like makes you a little bit of a better fighter when or if that does happen?
Yeah, I think one thing he said that stuck out was just try to be calm. I think the tendency is to maybe overextend yourself or be a little too jacked up, which is natural. But you watch his fight videos, and there's some crazy ones. He doesn't look calm, but maybe he feels calm on the inside, and he obviously was getting it done.
Oh, I remember him dropping the gloves quite a few times in the old Flyers rivalry, especially when he was in Toronto, and I don't remember it ever looking very very calm.
Yeah.
Maybe it was all an act. Maybe he's just projecting. Maybe he was way more in control than he wanted anyone to believe.
Yeah, I think he was, just from talking to him. He definitely seemed like he was in control. He knew what he was doing, and obviously knew how to do it really well. So, and obviously he's passed that on to Max. I think when Max gets in situations, sticking up for a teammate, that's really impressed me this year. And he knows what he's doing. He doesn't put himself in too vulnerable positions, but still gets his punches in. So, yeah, obviously it's not as big of part of the game as when Ty was playing, but if you can protect yourself and hopefully protect your teammates, that's kind of the ideal.
Well, Sam, speaking of languages, talking versus not talking, body language on the ice, we try to do our due diligence before we have guys come on the Blackhawks Insider Podcast, and we were informed that Mandarin. Is that something that you picked up at Brown? How fluent are you in Mandarin?
I really don't know that much Mandarin anymore.
Okay.
I did in high school. I took Mandarin for a few years, and I remember some of the basics. I was I'm from a small town in Pennsylvania, so when I saw that was an option, to take that, it seemed like pretty crazy. I was pretty tired of taking Spanish at my public school in Pennsylvania, so it seemed like it'd be fun, and it was pretty cool. Unfortunately, a lot of it has left me.
Did you ever think about taking Mandarin at Brown?
No.
If I wanted to diss Colby in Mandarin.
Oh, don't give him another language to diss me in, please.
What would I say? What's you don't even have to tell me what it means, but if any kind of breadcrumbs, anything kind of jabs I could maybe throw his way.
I wish I could give you something.
Okay.
But...
All right, that's all good.
Hockey guys stick together, Chris. Don't ever forget that. Okay?
For sure.
Well, wait. So you brought up your hometown a little bit. Is that it's Hollidaysburg, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Now I remember seeing Hollidaysburg in the Little League World Series over the last couple of years. Did you play baseball at all? Was that a sport you were into? Because I've seen them. Maybe you've seen them in it a couple of different times.
Yeah, they did. They had a pretty good run last year. They a team from Hollidaysburg made it all the way to Williamsport. I played baseball growing up. We had some good teams. I just played through Little League. We never, for whatever reason, we never tried. I wish we would have tried to go play in that tournament. But really was cool seeing the boys from my hometown last year on ESPN.
Yeah, I always get excited when I see a PA team doing well. I mean, I know obviously Eastern PA and Western PA are pretty much different countries, but certainly exciting to see. And speaking of exciting, I remember you and I talking a little bit about this in the beginning of the season. Just some of the exciting moments that you've got kind of going on around your life. And we talked about the World Championships, something you got to do this past summer. You get to put on that USA jersey, which is obviously an incredible honor, and go over, represent the country, play with some different players, play with some different coaches. And I always like to ask guys about this experience, especially guys who it's their first time, because I just think putting that jersey on with that crest and those colors, it's just so special.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was my first time representing the United States in any tournament, and it really was. It was pretty surreal putting on that jersey for the first time, I'm not going to lie. And we had a pretty good run. We had a good team, played hard, and we were well coached. We played to our structure, and just came up a little short in the semifinal game. But it was a cool opportunity. It's something obviously, any time you get a chance to represent your country, I'd absolutely jump at that opportunity. So it was something I'd love to do again. Hopefully, I'm lucky enough to get to do it.
What a year 2022 was. You get traded, you play World Championships, you get married. So many highlights, and all that to say, congratulations on tying the knot and. All very exciting stuff, and has it sunk in that you're married? Any honeymoon plans for after the season or anything like that?
Nothing in stone yet, but definitely would want to go on a honeymoon sometime this summer, and just have to figure that out. My wife's a Canadian citizen. So in the process of getting her green card, so a lot of it just depends where we'll go. Will depend on whether that comes. Got
to be able to let her back into the country, right? Well, if you need a good recommendation, my wife and I took our honeymoon last summer. We went to Maui, and it was unbelievable. Definitely a trip that we walked away from thinking, we picked the right place. So. Can't go wrong. You don't have to go through customs. You leave the airport. You call an Uber. It's so easy. So I'll live and die by that one. That was a great one for us.
That's good to hear. It might I've heard that. I think Jake McCabe did the same and had great things to say. So we might have to take you up on that.
Yeah, we ran into a couple of other hockey people there, and then I saw a number of guys who play on the West Coast. They went for their All-Star break. You can't go wrong. So we'll catch up as the season goes along, and if it comes to it, I'll definitely give you some good recs.
Yeah, sounds great.
Well, Sam, it's been great having you on the team from a broadcast perspective. We certainly echo what has already been said, that you bring a lot of positivity and energy to the team off the ice. You're fun to watch on the ice, and congratulations on the personal and career milestones in the past 12 months, and we're really excited to get back to work with the second half of the season. Thanks very much for coming on the Blackhawks Insider Podcast. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me, guys, and excited for the rest of the way and getting back to action here. So appreciate it.
I don't know if Sam Lafferty's a beer drinker at all, specifically Dos Equis, but I mean, one of the most interesting men in the world, Sam Lafferty.
Just finding out that he's a scratch golfer, I have so many more questions for him. You know, like I want to get on the golf course and play 18 with him, and it's incredible. I mean, and you just see what he's been able to do, and since he's coming here. And you know, one thing we didn't even get into it with him, and this has got to be so challenging for him, is trade speculation. I mean, his name is everywhere right now, and it's a feather in his cap. I mean, it shows you how valuable he is as a player when every playoff team is calling about Sam Lafferty. I mean, whether it happens or not, we have no idea. You know, these things happen way over our head, but it shows how valuable of a player and a guy he is. And, you know, whatever happens, if he's here, awesome. We love having him here. And if he's somewhere else, we're going to root for him to try to go win a cup.
Totally. And I would just say selfishly related to the trade speculation, I mean, I hope he's around. I've really enjoyed getting to know him this season. We had his stepdad on a broadcast earlier this year around Christmas time. And getting to know, the Pebble Beach Pro-Am just wrapped up over the weekend. Aaron Rodgers won it. Maybe Sam Lafferty's going to be taking home some Pro-Am golf hardware at some point later in his career. We'll see. So we're celebrating that. And let's move into Sellies and Chirps now, where we bring a topic to the table and invite the other co-host, only two of us this week, to celebrate or chirp it, and certainly invite plenty of discussion from our listeners as well. By the way, if you want to get involved in the show in any way, we'd love to hear from you. You can leave comments on our YouTube page. Use the hashtag Blackhawks mailbag on your Twitter posts. If you have questions you want us to ask future guests, topics for Sellies and Chirps, just let us know. There are ways to get involved. But Colby, why don't you get things going here?
Look, I think it's a perfect time to talk about All-Star because it just happened this past weekend. You know, the Blackhawks had Seth Jones there as a representative. But you know, my Selly and Chirp for this week is really how do people feel and how do you feel about the All-Star game, about the skills competition? I think the NHL has, you know, over the last 10 years tried a number of different things, you know, different divisional, you know, teams, 3-on-3. You know, they've tried having events that in the skills competition that coincide with the location in Vegas. There was some fun stuff at the Bellagio. This year there was different events on the beach and on the golf course. You know, and growing up, you know, I remember All-Star games being East versus West, two teams, 5-on-5, you know, and the games would be high scoring, but they would be intense. And there was like little games within the games going on. I mean, I remember one year Jeremy Roenick was out there throwing his body around, laying some hits on guys, which is, you know, if you know anything about JR, that's definitely kind of par for the course with him, obviously a Chicago Blackhawk legend. So I guess my question to you, Chris, is, you know, having an opportunity to see and sort of be deeply involved in hockey now, are you celebrating or are you chirping the All-Star skills and the All-Star game, the way it's set up, the format, and just sort of the way they go about presenting All-Star Weekend?
Well, first of all, I think that this is an issue that's certainly not just in the NHL. I think it's across all four major sports, just finding a way to make these events competitive and worth watching. You know, I think the way that pro sports is now, there's such an underlying injury concern that there's no way you're going to get these guys to go 100% in an exhibition game. And I think, originally that's what I want as a fan more than anything is I want to see Crosby and Ovechkin playing on the same line and, treating it like it's a real game. I understand why that might not just be a reality anymore. So I applaud the NHL's efforts to try and do things different. Personally, I like the whole division sort of tournament. I don't really get that. I don't find it as compelling as if it were just East versus West. And I think one way to really stoke these guys' competitive drives is if you treated it like a real game, put the Eastern Conference All-Stars with the Western Conference All-Stars and made it a battle for playing time. And I think some guys would start to play their shifts a little bit harder if they weren't getting as much playing time, or if they were seeing another guy that they consider a peer get more time on the ice. As far as the skills,
savage.
I mean,
I love it. Listen. I love your savage approach to it. Shorten the bench. Let's go.
Yeah, shorten the bench. As far as the skills competition goes, I got a kick out of it. I liked some of the fun things that they did. I really liked when the players were outside shooting pucks at surfboards with one guy in the dunk tank. I'm not sure that Fort Lauderdale is really a surfing town. I think you have to go up the Atlantic coast to really get to the prime waves in Florida anyway. But be that as it may, I still enjoyed some of that stuff. However, again, I just didn't get the sense that the players were trying really hard necessarily, especially in the Tendy tandem. It was just, guys were going like 50%. And so I also think that it was an event that was structured from a television perspective too, and was not really, I don't think it was a good event to watch if you were in person, because they were doing so many events outside of the arena that were pre-taped. So
right.
They were trying to do things differently. I think at the end of the day, though, just no one was really trying, it seemed like. And I understand why, but that's kind of the question that MLB, NBA, NFL, they're playing flag football in the Pro Bowl now. So,
But it got pretty heated. That got pretty heated. I'm pretty sure I forget which D-back it was, but someone absolutely smoked Tyreek Hill, and literally decleated him in the flag football game. So, I did see some of that as well.
But from a player's perspective, though, does anybody watch who is watching the NHL All-Star Game? I'm not sure many players or coaches are. It's really a fan event.
Yeah, it's totally a fan event. I think players and coaches are watching, are spending this time getting away. I really do. I think people really take this bye week and All-Star break weekend as an opportunity to recharge their batteries. I think most guys are laying in the sun, drinking a beer over the weekend. So I'm with you, Chris. It's funny. I get it. I really do. And I applaud the NHL trying to be creative. I'm always down for us trying new things, finding ways to incorporate people, trying to get fans closer to the players. But I agree. It's tough because it almost seems like it's uncool to try. And I just remember growing up watching All-Star games in the 90s where it was guys tried. I remember Ray Bourque with the accuracy shooting and JR with the accuracy shooting and Paul Coffey and the fastest skater. And these guys were giving an effort trying to win these events. And I guess that's the thing. How do you incentivize? I've seen people say, well, the winning team every team in the winning conference should get 2 points added to their point total. I've just seen different suggestions, nothing that I've really liked yet, but I do agree. They gotta keep tweaking with it. And I did watch a little bit of the NFL's Pro Bowl and all the skills competition stuff they did. And I actually thought some of it was interesting. I know some of it was goofy, but I was kind of thinking like some of these things, like again, they're trying different things, and I appreciate that too. So I'm with you. I think we kind of see it in a very similar manner. But at the end of the day, it is for the fans, and I think the fans like it. And now I will leave you with this. And I saw this in the American Hockey League All-Star Skills Comp last night. It's in Laval, Quebec, so not quite South Florida, but they took the glass out for the skills competition along the sides. So, like, it's just boards along the sides. Now, obviously, behind the net, they still need glass for any of the different shooting things going on. But that basically put fans right there. And players could sort of go over to the boards, and they could sign autographs, and they could interact with people. And the building was, probably oversold. I mean, it's in Quebec. Next year in Toronto, the building will be totally oversold as well, right? But I thought that was a really cool touch by the American League, taking the glass out, giving fans an even closer look towards the players. I get it. There's safety risk involved with that. Somebody could jump on the ice. Somebody could do something stupid. That's always something that you have to be cognizant of. But I thought that was a really cool idea by the American Hockey League. Give them a lot of credit. Maybe that'll get adopted next year in the NHL All-Star Skills Competition. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of a predicament. I don't have a real strong idea to put forward. Normally, when I have a strong opinion about something, I like to not just have an opinion. I like to at least have an idea that how I feel like it could be improved. And I don't really have that here. I don't know what they should do, but I do think they need to continue to search for what the right mix is for the weekend.
I just want to say that I think that's a great idea by the AHL to take the glass away like that. I totally agree, because that's one thing that makes the NBA All-Star Game and really just NBA games in general extra compelling, is that you have such it's for all intents and purposes no barrier between players and that front row of fans. And in All-Star game, NBA All-Star games I've watched, in some cases fans are almost coming onto the court during these games. It's much more interactive with the players because there's not the ice or boards component. So I think that's a great idea, and maybe something that the NHL will experiment with in future All-Star weekends. Quickly, Colby, my Selly or Chirp is the Bean. No, not the Chicago Bean, but the New York Bean. The Big Apple has, decided to try and copy the Windy City by installing a bean sculpture of its own. Now, it's been done by the same sculptor that did the Chicago Bean in Millennium Park, but come on.
Sell out.
I mean, who on earth would, unless it's, we're not going to put a bean in every city. I just don't see why anyone would celebrate this.
I'm not celebrating it at all. Because before I knew anything about Chicago, other than like Chicago sports, I knew about the Bean. Like, the Bean is totally synonymous with the city. I think it's kind of a weird play by New York to do that. I know it's like a great touristy type of thing where people love to take pictures and whatnot, but I hope they paid that architect or designer a lot of money, because I'm saying that's like a little bit of a sellout move to, and I'm sure if it wasn't him, someone else would have done it. So all right, I get it. But I'm not celebrating it. I think Chicago is the Bean. There are certain things about Manhattan that are very Manhattan, and they couldn't go anywhere else. So I'm with you on this one yet again. I think this is when I read that article, I kind of raised my eyebrows, like, really? Like, that's a little bit weird.
It's like, it's not even in a park. It's just crammed onto a street corner.
Like near a hotel, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it by a hotel?
Or an apartment building or something. It's just not even in any kind of open space. Not that there is much in Manhattan, but
a little bit of a reach.
All good to know that those New Yorkers, they're trying to be like Chicago. Who can blame them, I guess. And I guess I'm not even going to get into the pizza discussion.
Well, I was just going to say, if they want to copy Chicago, they should start putting their trash behind buildings and not right out on the sidewalk, because honestly, like that was the first thing my wife and I noticed. She lived in New York for 10 years, and just there's no trash in Chicago because people have alleys. They put their trash behind their houses and behind their businesses. And in New York, it's just, hey, let's just dump it right out on the curb and let everybody smell it and enjoy it. I'm sure that'll go over well.
We all got problems. That's for sure. Well, we are back on the Blackhawks Insider Podcast. The second half of the season is upon us, and be sure to continue to tune in for the remainder of the season. It's going to be a fun ride. New episodes every Wednesday. For Colby Cohen, I'm Chris Vosters. For Kaylee Chelios, Jenna Rose, and Trevor Bray, we are signing off, and we will talk to you next week on the Blackhawks Insider Podcast.